All right, let's get into a story that's, well, it's way more than just a campfire tale. This is a dark, powerful legend, and we're going to look at it not just as a horror story, but as a really deep philosophical drama. This is the parable of the Beast of Bedburg, a tragedy of the will.
Okay, let's just start right at the heart of the whole thing. This one sentence, it's the key. It basically tells you everything you need to know from the get-go. This isn't your typical good guy versus bad guy story. Nope. This is about something way more interesting, a clash between one incredibly powerful individual and a society that is terrified of anything it can't control.
So where does a tragedy like this even begin? Well, it all kicks off with one man making a choice. Let's dive into Act 1, the rejection of the herd.
So, meet our main character, Peter Stump. He's living in this place, Cologne, that's just steeped in fear. And get this, they call him the Stump because of his severed hand. I mean, right from the start, he's basically branded as a victim, just another weak member of the flock. But here's the thing, Stump was having none of it. He absolutely refused to play that part.
Okay, so to really get what he's doing, you have to understand what he's pushing back against. The parable calls it herd morality. And this concept is fascinating because it completely flips our normal ideas of good and bad on their head. It basically says that what we call morality isn't really about being virtuous. It's a defense mechanism for the weak. It's a system where anything that's too strong, too ambitious, or just different gets slapped with the label evil.
And this right here, this is the absolute turning point. Stump looks around at his neighbors and sees them building this world of safety and prayer and mediocrity. And to him, it's not a sanctuary, it's a cage. So instead of hiding in there with everyone else, he does the exact opposite. He turns, stares right into the abyss, and makes a choice. Not salvation, power. Raw, untamed power. So, the big question is, how does a regular guy just grab that kind of power? That brings us to Act 2 of this whole tragedy, the alchemical ascension.
Now, you might have heard the old folklore version, right? Where the devil just hands him a magic wolfskin belt. Simple. But this parable? Oh, it throws that idea right out the window. It gives us something way more complex, way more intellectual. We're not talking about a simple magic trinket. We're talking about a shimmering, forbidden alchemical serum. This is forbidden science, not a fairy tale.
And this transformation, you've got to understand, was a deliberate act of will. This wasn't something that just happened to him. First, he makes a pact with Mephistopheles himself. Then, he drinks this unstable serum. And it wasn't a magic poof or a curse. No, the text calls it a painful cellular restructuring. I mean, imagine that. A deliberate, agonizing process of remaking himself from the inside out to fuse man and beast.
And the result? Absolutely staggering. He becomes this alchemical werewolf. He can change shape whenever he wants. His eyes glow like fire. But check out the kind of power he gets. It's not just animalistic rage. He's got this primal earthy magic, sure, but he also wields this cold, calculating rune magic of the stars. It's like he became the perfect fusion of pure instinct and high intellect.
So now he's got all this power. And what does he do with it? He begins a long and terrifying reign, which brings us to Act 3, the reign of the Übermensch. 25 years. Just let that sink in for a second. A quarter of a century. That's not just some random number thrown in there. That's a statement. It tells you just how successful he was. For 25 years, he was the apex predator, the undisputed master of his world. No one could touch him. And the parable has a specific name for what he became, the Übermensch. That Nietzschean idea of someone who goes beyond traditional morality to create their own set of values. That's Stump. He wasn't just some mindless monster. He was a living philosophy, a creature of pure raw will, who operated on a level that was completely beyond the villagers' petty ideas of good and evil.
And this quote, man, it just perfectly captures his mindset. He literally laughed at their virtue. He looked at their rules, their prayers, all their goodness, and all he saw was a cheap disguise for their fear. He had nothing but contempt for them, because he had the guts to do the one thing they were too afraid to do, define his own reality. But you know how these things go. No reign lasts forever. And since the herd can't beat strength with strength, it has to use its own weapons. Welcome to Act 4, the revenge of slave morality.
And when the end comes, it comes fast. So, there's a hunt. The beast is finally trapped. A hunter lands this one decisive blow and slices off its paw. But that's not even the big reveal.
The real shock comes later, when they find Peter Stump, the farmer, and they see it, his bandaged arm. It's a perfect match for the beast's wound. And just like that, the wolf is unmasked.
Okay, this next part is so telling. Under torture, Stump tells them everything. The whole truth. The alchemy, the pact, the rune magic. But the authorities, they just can't wrap their heads around it. It's too big, too complex for their small world. So what do? They dumb it down. They reduce his incredible, willful transformation into a simple story they can understand. A devil's belt. Simple witchcraft. They literally rewrite his reality so it fits inside their own tiny box.
And that complete failure to understand is what seals his fate. It brings us to the final, chilling act of this story, the final verdict.
You know, even at the very end, Stump doesn't give them the satisfaction. He never breaks. He faces this absolutely brutal execution, and there's no fear, no begging for forgiveness, just proud, silent disdain. It's his final act of rejection, a final no to their society, their morality, and their weak gods.
And this is the parable's final, devastating mic drop. His execution, it wasn't a triumph of good over evil. Not at all. The story argues it was just an act of pure fear. In killing the one person who was actually free, the herd didn't accomplish anything noble. They just reaffirmed their own imprisonment. They just made the walls of their cage feel a little safer, a little more comfortable.
It's a really powerful, kind of bleak conclusion, right? The strong man is torn down by the weak. But the story isn't quite done with us. There's one last twist. In this whole tragedy of the will, you have to ask, who was the real deceiver?
And the answer is, yes, there was. Because for all of his strength, for all of his will to power, even the Übermensch was deceived. The man who thought he was the master was really just a pawn in a much bigger game.
And here it is, the final crushing irony of the whole story. That alchemical serum, the source of all his power and freedom, it was a lie. It was just an engineered conduit, a tool created by Mephistopheles to control him the whole time. The man who broke every chain, who reached for absolute freedom, ended up losing the only thing that was truly his own soul. It's just a chilling, brutal reminder of what can happen when you dare to touch that divine fire.